Rory Gallagher is with us this morning. Rory, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, lads. How's it going?
Yeah, very well. How are the preparations going for you?
It's very like that. It's non-preparation, so it is, from a point of view that the boys are totally focused on their clubs at this point in time, and in Derry they operated a system where they played, a group stage, but every team qualified, so they're down to the last 16 at this stage, and that's on this weekend, so from this weekend on, players will start to come out of the club bubble and start to refocus on county football,
Yeah, and has it been strange in that actually some players who maybe might not have been part of your consideration because you're seeing club football in better weather have actually suddenly got into your thoughts, or is it largely the same kind of panel that you would have been dealing with who are still part of your thoughts?
To be honest, it's largely the same. Because, from my point of view in Derry, there's been a huge turnover of players over the last number of years. So we've been trying to whittle down to what we feel the 28 or 29 players that carry us forward for a number of years. Obviously, a couple of younger players coming in, and we'd like to think we've decided on them. That's not to say if there's a few players produce really big performance in the latter stage championship that catch your eye naturally, that'd be great to see. But we'd like to think, almost a year into it now, that we have identified at this stage the players that we want to move forward.
Rory, the big story over essentially the last couple of months has been the split season, and there's now, it seems like unstoppable momentum behind the idea of a split season where you play club and then you play county and never the twain shall meet. As somebody centrally involved in club and county all your life, what's your take on that? How have you felt watching that conversation unfold?
I would have been reluctant for it, to be honest, in the sense that I would hate the inter-county season to be over as early as it appears to be proposed. But at the same time, when the April club-only month was introduced, it has been difficult to police, as has been teams starting to train pre-Christmas, and I accept we've all probably bent those rules over the years, and it's been very, very different to police. So I've come to around to that way of thinking that I actually think it's good. It's definitely worth trialling for a number of years, for a couple of years, because county players are very, very torn at different times because they don't want to let their club down. They don't want club games held up as a result of them. So I definitely think it's worth appealing, and if it can be policed very fairly and that everybody's on the one foot. And what happens with county managers, county players, say when we were in Donegal, if we thought Tyrone were getting an edge, we'd have to do that as well. And sometimes it makes no sense, but you just feel a responsibility of the players that we have to do that as well. And you look at you're looking at your rival, you don't want them to get an edge. And I think that's been a big factor in maybe county teams overdoing it at times.
Yeah, and you can kind of see that in the long run that leads to the burnout of the players, and actually they're less likely to go back training. You see so many players dropping out of inter-county football. I think the point you made there, it's worth trialling, and I think maybe we've been a bit reluctant in the past to trial things because there's an assumption that if we do something 1 year, then it's going to be in for Congress for 3 years and you can't go back because of the archaic rules, and if something doesn't get voted in, you don't get the opportunity to vote on it again. All of a sudden all that stuff seems to have fallen away, and there seems to be an appetite for, well, let's trial something, give it a couple of years to see how it works, and then draw lessons from that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that we've got to try to see, is there a better way of working, both for club and county, and I think what definitely has helped, say in Donegal the last number of years, the club championship hasn't started until after Donegal have went out. And Donegal have went to the latter stages, relatively speaking, in the last 7 or 8 years, and that's left a complete focus on it. What was very difficult in my early years with Donegal was there was club championship put in the middle of the inter-county championship, and that caused mayhem everywhere and massive disgruntlement. The other side of club players, I think they deserve their complete focus on it. And I was lucky enough to, when I played club football in Belfast, to get to an All-Ireland club final with Rand the following March, and probably the idealistic way, it's brilliant to have a showpiece on St Patrick's Day. And don't get me wrong, it was brilliant to do it, but it was an unbelievably long, drawn-out process, which you played a provincial club final in the end of November, start of December, and you didn't play again to mid-February. And I think we were the first day we were supposed to play, it was snowed off, it was a crazy way of working, and we have become far more efficient. I think still there's too much negativity. There's been a massive amount of improvement, and I think if we do try this and a success, I think there's no reason then with club and county just can't fit very, very well together.
There's been a clear focus on separating the inter-county and putting that into the first 6-7 months of the year, and then the club coming afterwards. Not that much conversation just yet about what the games that will be played at inter-county level will actually look like, and what the format of any competitions might be, which ultimately is going to decide the success or failure of this.
Yeah, I think if you're speaking to county players, they'll not want any less games. I think they'll definitely want a minimum 7 league games and probably the same amount, if not more, championship games. Whether the pre-season competitions are part of that as well. But I think that what has happened as well in the last number of years is players don't come to county, and but definitely in the top counties, they don't come to county football to get fit anymore. They're doing that much work away from it, and they're previously you had a massive pre-season to get yourself in great shape. I think that's not necessary anymore. So I think a couple of weeks training, you can start to hit the ground running with games, and that's what players want. Play games very, very regularly, and then feed naturally into the club season at the end of it.
There's the original fixture suggestions, which I think probably are not really going to be spoken about as much anymore, was dividing the country into 4/8s, which obviously makes sense from a mathematical perspective, but suddenly you're redrawing provincial boundaries and one county moves from Ulster to Connacht and 3 move out of Leinster or 4 move out of Leinster, and all of a sudden those become new championships anyway. If you're doing that, maybe the right thing to do is to have 4 divisions, promotion and relegation, and the winners of Division 1 are actually the All-Ireland champions.
Yeah, I suppose that's a model possibly could work, but I suppose, having spent all my life involved in the Ulster Championship, and Fermanagh obviously never having won it, I think to take away that from a lot of counties at the start of every year, whether it's Fermanagh, whether it's Sligo, probably Longford, teams like these, awfully at times they feel they want to get to a provincial final. And I think to take that away from players, at the end of the day, there can only one team wins the Sam Maguire, and that's going to become from one of 3 or 4 or 5 any year. It's always been the case. I think to take away the opportunity to win a provincial final, a provincial medal, or even to get to a final, even a couple of years ago when we were in Fermanagh, and against the odds, you beat Armagh, Monaghan, the effect that has on a county and the knock-on effect in those smaller counties to get the final, to rob them of that, personally, I think would be difficult to do.
Could you start the year with provincial championships as they always were, straight knockout, and maybe have those finals on a weekend around St. Patrick's Day or at that stage? Would that make any sense?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, Joe. Again, and I'd be open for 2 years we'll try one thing, and another 2 years try another, and then come together and see what people feel work best. I think there's a lot of talk about the provincials because obviously Dublin's domination, but if you look at Munster, it's always been Cork and Kerry. It's not that much different than it's ever been. I think in hurling, I know it's a different, obviously not the sport that I'm involved in. I don't think any of them counties would like to lose a provincial championship, so it's going to be difficult to get something that suits everybody. That's why I definitely have an open mind. What you're saying there on the league basis, that would be very attractive because you'd have teams playing each other that are all at the one level. That's why people love the National League and exposure in it the last 7, 8, 9 years, because you're getting teams at the one level playing each other, and the games in the National League, despite the weather, can be absolutely fantastic.
Rory, when it comes to this preparation window, you're going to get your players back in a couple of weeks' time, and you're going to have to get ready for the end of the National Football League and then get ready for the Ulster Championship. Look, nothing is normal in 2020 anyway, but what's your feeling about having about a 1 month window to be ready for competitive games again at Intercounty?
Again, I don't think. The first thing you've got to accept is a bit different, but it's actually, if we get back in September the 14th, fair enough, you're not going to have all the players, but by the start of October, you're going to have all your players for probably the end of October, start of November, with no club distractions, no nothing, no club leagues, everything. You're going to get 2 National League games leading into it. It's actually not bad, so it's not. Would you like another couple of weeks? Yes. But I'm actually very, very happy with it, to be honest, because once they're knocked out with their club, that's it. There's no club league games. There's nothing else in their mind. Obviously, you'll have a shorter period to focus on where we've got Armagh, where generally if you were in, finish up the National League March and you're playing mid-May, you'd have 6, 7 weeks communicating with the boys about that. But that's just something that we have to deal with personally, and I don't think it'll be a big issue.
Yeah, and look, it's going to be a different format. In many ways, you're getting them ready for a much shorter window this year. It's going to be games coming around a lot quicker than normal. As you say, you may have had to play an Ulster preliminary round in early May, and you mightn't have been back out in action till June. This is all condensed into a 5-6 week period now. I guess that brings its own challenges, but it must be pretty exciting at the same time.
It's unbelievably exciting, and I think if we, obviously ourselves and Armagh, and their same side as Donegal Tyrone, it's all about trying to get a bit of momentum, get that first win, and you just don't know where it's going to take. But I suppose there's the other thing, lads, as well. It's going to be very, very different. Is there going to be crowds allowed in Ulster? At the minute, you're allowed, I think it's up to 400, in Northern Ireland, In Southern Ireland, I'm not sure what it's going to be. So that'll lead to a very different atmosphere. You look forward to games with 7, 8, 10,000 people at them. and that sometimes can create an unbelievably intense rivalry. That's the one thing that you'd be worried about. Will it be a challenge game type thing? To be honest, watching some of the games on TV, they haven't lacked spark at the club level, you know.
One last question for you. Do you, I mean, as the manager of the inter-county team in Derry, do you think that there will be a Derry team entered into the Gaelic Football Championship in 2021?
I'm absolutely certain that there will be. Well, no matter what. I'm not sure where those comments came from. I think I seen the Derry chairman responded. I think the word he used was farcical. Like, there's absolutely no doubt. I know Derry are very, very serious about their football and hurling. They're mad keen to compete at all levels.
All right, Rory, we'll let you go. Great to talk to you. Best of luck with everything coming the weeks. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Bye-bye.